Codasteroid.
Hello guys, in today's episode I'm going to record something concerning Linux commands again. So as you know, I'm new to Linux and new to Ubuntu exactly, and I just switched to this operating system in last January. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to learn Linux commands. I want to get familiar with the bash terminal commands, and I'm trying to share with you this every time I learn something new. I learn a new command, try to group things in a video and share with you here on my YouTube channel. So I made a video last week about some basic commands you can get started with, and now I'm learning some in my coding journey I'm always encountering this. So I just see some commands this week, and I want to share that with you. So the first thing I want to clarify for you guys, and something that I forget to talk about last week, is some basic stuff that we need to know as beginners in Linux. So here we can see the name of for example, if you take a look at this text in green, it represents some text, of course, and of course here we have the name of your account. It's my name, of course. It's the name that you logged in, of course, and here you have the name of your computer. But here the most important thing is this tilde sign that represents your home directory, which is in my case Rushdie Khalid. And also here I have this $sign that represents let's say it's not representing, but it defines that I'm using my terminal as a standard user and not as root user. So I would talk about this later in the future videos, or next videos, later in this playlist of bash terminal. But here I'm just going to put some kind of commands in this video, and something that I want to share with you, and things that I didn't talk about later, before in the previous episode. So here we have an old command called ls. As you know, ls will output our everything we have in a certain directory. So here we are in home directory, of course. We have this the files and these directories, but this ls command has options. We have -a that will list as well the hidden files, the source files, but also we have other options like ls-l and ls-la, and those commands will tell us everything about these directories and files. So if I go to ls and if I type ls-la or just ls-l or -l, you can see here we have some information that's been added to all these directories. So we have here, for example, I don't know exactly what this these characters here mean, but I'm going to look for this, and I will make all the in the next video I'll explain this as well. But here the most important thing, you can see the date, you can see where this directory has been created, and maybe here we have some other things like maybe that represents, I think, the size, or I don't know, but here it represents some information about the list. But I'm really curious about these characters here, and also everything here I see on this information. So we have also another option called ls-la, that also represent the same kind of information, but it does the same also for source files and the hidden files. So let me clear the terminal, and I really see something very very cool this day, and is pushd command and popd command. So what pushd command and popd command? So let's say we want to, let's change the home directory to downloads directory, for example. Let's say documents, for example, right? So now we are in documents directory, and let's say we want to go back to the home directory. And yes, we can do this just by cd command, or just using cd dot dot to have to go to the previous directory we were in. But also there is a command called push, and we can do it instantly by this command called pushd, and then we can put a slash and go to any directory exists in our home folder. So let's say we want to go to something like ATC, for example, right? So we can see here we are in ATC directory. But what if we want to, let's say we work on this ATC directory for a long period of time, and like this, for example, and we forget where we were in before, which directory we were in before. So we can use another command called popd, and popd will go back immediately to the previous directory we were in before. So if I type popd and press enter, you see I get back to documents directory. So that's how popd and pushd command, and I really love these commands because it really saves your time instead of using cd dot dot or cd command and go again to to the home directory and put ATC in that manner. Or sorry, here ATC. Okay. So that's for pushd command and popd command. But also I have another command called file. So file, as you know on Linux, so this is the things I know as previous Windows user. On Windows we are always defining our file extension. So let's say we write something in Word format, we should always put the extension of Word files. If we are copying or just putting an image inside a directory, it's always there's an extension out there that defines the file extension of that image. But on Linux it's not necessarily important to use file extensions, because Linux figures out all this on its own. So if I give you one example of how this works, let's say we will go to the home directory, and I will try just to list the content of home directory. So ls-a, and as you can see here we have the files in green, and folders and some other files as well in blue and white. So here we have a file in green without any extension, and normally this is Mars. And let's see the extension, which extension this file has. File Mars, of course. So in order to know the extension of this file, we need to use a command called file, and then we can follow this command by the name of the file, Mars. And you can see here this file extension is output here. So we have JPEG, image data, XF standard, etc. And also we can do the same for other files that already has an extension, like direction.md, for example. And let's say here we have direction.md, and you can see here it's it's a text file, and that's in general how file command works. Another thing I want to mention in this episode is something called anyway, there's nothing called ears, but let's clear the terminal, and I want to create a new file. But this file it has the name of this file could have some spaces, and I want to share with you guys how we can skip the spaces inside this file. So let's say I'm trying to set getting started, and I won't put this here as getting started.md. So here it looks a little bit intimidating to do it. So let's say, for example, getting started with Python, right, and put md in that. Sorry, maybe we can put md or any file extension here. But if we want to skip the spaces, we can use this character, skip character. And this skip character here, we can say get started, and again we can do this with for example with Python. And here I can just put md, and you can see now if I do ls again, ls-a, you can see the file here getting started with Python. And now I can open up my file getting started, I don't know if years, but we can just use getting started again with Python. But this is just a way how to deal with file names with spaces. So if I so let's edit something in this file, and I can just say getting started here. I can use the hide arrow key and just put here nano to edit the file, and let's remove some space here and just put this. You can see I can type anything here, getting started with Python. Then I can Control S, say yeah, and let's do this. So we have here nano command. I can just type cat instead, and I'll read file here, getting started with Python. So that's all for today's episode. I hope I can share more things in the next videos as I learn more about bash terminal commands. I hope I can make something about bash scripting, because I'm really curious about this nowadays, but I really want to level up my bash terminal skills, get familiar with that as a new Linux user. So that's all for today's tutorial, today's episode. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Codasteroid.